The morning sun cast long shadows across the execution square as townspeople gathered in unusual silence. Elena stood on the wooden platform, her hands bound behind her back, her dark hair matted with dungeon filth. She had stopped crying 3 days ago. Now she simply stared at the crowd with hollow eyes, searching for a single friendly face among the sea of people who had once been her neighbors. The charges against her were absurd, yet no one had spoken in her defense. They said she'd stolen grain from the Lord's storehouse during the harsh winter. They said she'd poisoned the well that had made 6 families ill. They said she practiced dark magic in the woods beyond the village. All lies, woven together by Margaret Blackwood, the mayor's wife, whose jealousy had festered for years like an infected wound. Elena had committed only one true crime in Margaret's eyes. She had caught the attention of Margaret's son, Thomas, the golden boy of Millbrook. Their innocent friendship had bloomed into something tender and real, something that threatened Margaret's plans to marry Thomas into nobility. When Thomas refused to abandon Elena, Margaret had orchestrated this nightmare with frightening precision. False witnesses came forward. Evidence appeared from nowhere. The judge, owing favors to the mayor's family, had been swift and merciless in his verdict. The executioner checked his blade, testing its edge with a thick thumb. Elena watched him with detached curiosity, as if observing someone else's fate. The church bells began their mournful toll, marking the final moments of her life. She was only 23 years old. She would never feel rain on her face again, never taste fresh bread, never hear the songs of morning birds. Mayor Blackwood stepped forward, unrolling a parchment with theatrical slowness. His voice boomed across the square as he read the charges and sentence. Elena barely heard the words. She found herself thinking of her mother, dead these 10 years, and wondered if death would reunite them. The thought brought her first moment of peace in weeks. "Any last words?" the executioner asked, his voice surprisingly gentle beneath his black hood. Elena opened her mouth to speak when a commotion erupted at the edge of the crowd. People scattered like startled birds as a massive figure pushed through their ranks. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in rough woodsman's clothing that spoke of years spent far from civilization. His beard was thick and unkempt, his hair wild, but his eyes blazed with an intensity that made grown men step aside. "Stop this execution." His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed, though his appearance suggested nothing but a humble forest dweller. Guards moved to intercept him, but he swept them aside with shocking ease. Mayor Blackwood's face purpled with rage. "Who dares interrupt the king's justice? Seize this madman." The woodsman reached the platform in 3 long strides and turned to face the crowd. Something in his bearing made everyone freeze. He reached into his leather vest and withdrew a folded document, its seal catching the sunlight. Even from a distance, Elena could see it was no ordinary paper. "I am Lord William Ashford," the woodsman declared, his voice cutting through the shocked silence. "Knight Commander of the Northern Reach, sworn protector of the realm, bearer of the king's own seal. This execution will not proceed." The square erupted into chaos. Lord Ashford had been presumed dead for 5 years, lost in the Northern Wars. Yet here he stood, very much alive, transformed from celebrated hero into wild mountain man. Margaret Blackwood swayed on her feet, face draining of color. Her husband stood frozen, mouth agape. Elena felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Lord Ashford turned to look at her, and in his weathered face, she glimpsed something that made her breath catch. Beneath the beard and scars and wilderness, she recognized features she had known all her life. Features she saw every time she looked in a mirror. This man, this legendary warrior everyone believed dead, had her eyes. The mayor's guard stood paralyzed, caught between their duty to local authority and the undeniable proof of Lord Ashford's identity. The document he held bore the king's personal seal, unmistakable in its crimson wax and golden emblem. No one would dare forge such a thing. The penalty for impersonating a knight of the realm was death by torture, and this man showed no fear whatsoever. "Cut her bindings," Lord Ashford commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Now." The executioner hesitated only a heartbeat before drawing his knife and slicing through the ropes at Elena's wrists. She stumbled, her legs weak from days of imprisonment and terror. Strong hands caught her before she fell. The woodsman, no, Lord Ashford, steadied her with a gentleness that contradicted his fierce appearance. "Can you stand?" he asked quietly, and Elena heard something tender beneath the gruff exterior. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Questions swirled in her mind like autumn leaves in a storm, but shock had stolen her ability to form words. Who was this man? Why had he saved her? And why did looking at him feel like gazing into a mirror that reflected not her face but her soul? Mayor Blackwood recovered his composure with visible effort. Lord Ashford, if you truly are who you claim, you must understand that this woman has been tried and convicted according to the law. She stands accused of serious crimes against this town and its people. Tell me the charges. Lord Ashford's tone could have frozen fire. The mayor cleared his throat and began listing Elena's supposed crimes. With each accusation, Lord Ashford's expression grew darker. When Blackwood finished, the knight turned to address the crowd directly. I have lived in the forest surrounding Millbrook for 3 years, he said. I know every path, every clearing, every soul who ventures beyond the town walls. This woman you accuse has done nothing but tend her small garden and visit the woods to gather herbs for healing. I have watched her feed hungry animals from her own meager supplies. I have seen her leave portions of her bread at the old shrine for travelers in need. The crimes you describe are fabrications. Margaret Blackwood pushed forward, her face twisted with desperation. You've been gone for years. You know nothing of what happens in this town. This girl is a witch and a thief. She has bewitched my own son. Your son has good judgment, then, Lord Ashford replied coldly. Better than his mother, it seems. The crowd murmured, tension crackling like lightning about to strike. Thomas Blackwood himself broke through the throng, his young face anguished. It's true. Elena is innocent. My mother has lied about everything. She threatened witnesses, planted false evidence, all because she couldn't control my choices. Thomas, be silent. Margaret shrieked, but her son ignored her. I'll testify before any court in the land, Thomas continued, his voice shaking but determined. Elena has done nothing wrong. She's the kindest person I've ever known, and my mother has tried to murder her out of spite and ambition. Lord Ashford nodded slowly, as if Thomas had confirmed something he already suspected. He turned back to the mayor. This execution is suspended by my authority as Knight Commander. The girl will come with me until a proper investigation can be conducted. Any attempt to prevent this will be considered treason against the crown. Mayor Blackwood's political instincts warred visibly with his wife's fury on his face. Politics won. Of course, Lord Ashford. We defer to your judgment. However, the girl has no family, no one to vouch for her character beyond young Thomas, whose involvement compromises his testimony. Where will she go? With me, Lord Ashford said simply. To my cabin in the forest. She'll be under my protection until truth prevails. Elena finally found her voice. I don't understand. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. Lord Ashford met her eyes, and she saw pain there, old and deep. I know you better than you realize. Come. We'll talk when we're away from this place. He draped his own cloak around her shoulders and guided her down from the platform. The crowd parted like water before them. Elena's mind reeled with confusion and exhaustion, but she felt something else too, a strange sense of recognition, as if some part of her had been waiting her entire life for this moment. They walked through the town gates and into the forest beyond. With each step, Elena felt the weight of her ordeal lifting slightly. The woods welcomed them with dappled sunlight and birdsong. Lord Ashford moved with the confidence of someone who knew every root and stone, leading her deeper into territory she'd explored only at the forest's edge. After an hour of walking, they reached a clearing where a sturdy cabin stood. It was simple but well made, surrounded by a small garden and a workshop filled with woodworking tools. Smoke rose from the chimney, suggesting recent habitation. Sit, Lord Ashford said, gesturing to a bench outside the cabin. I'll bring water and food. Then we'll talk. Elena sat, her mind struggling to process everything. This legendary knight, thought dead, had been living as a hermit in the forest. He had saved her life. And something in his face haunted her with its familiarity. She touched her own cheek, wondering if she was losing her mind, if the trauma of the execution had broken something inside her. Lord Ashford returned with bread, cheese, and cool water from his well. He sat across from her, studying her face with an expression that mixed joy and sorrow in equal measure. You have questions, he said. Ask them. Why? Elena whispered. Why save me? Why do you look at me that way? He was silent for a long moment, and she saw his jaw working, as if the words he needed to speak were physical things that hurt to produce. Finally, he reached into his shirt and pulled out a small, worn locket. He opened it and held it out to her. Inside was a miniature portrait of a young woman with dark hair and familiar eyes. Elena gasped. The woman could have been her twin. Her name was Catherine, Lord Ashford said, his voice rough with emotion. She was my wife. And you, Elena, are my daughter. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. Elena stared at the miniature portrait, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes clearly saw. The woman in the locket was her mother, younger than Elena remembered her, but unmistakably the same person who had raised her, loved her, and died when Elena was only 13. "That's impossible," Elena breathed. "My mother told me my father died before I was born. She said he was a merchant who fell ill during a journey to the southern ports." Lord Ashford, her father, if his words were true, closed his eyes as if in pain. "She lied to protect you. To protect us both. Please, let me explain everything. You deserve to know the truth." Elena's hands trembled as she set down the water cup. Every instinct screamed that this was madness, yet something deeper resonated with his claim. Those eyes that mirrored her own, the inexplicable pull she'd felt toward him, the way he'd risked everything to save a stranger. "Not a stranger. Never a stranger. I was 18 when I met your mother," William began, his gaze distant with memory. "I had just been knighted, full of pride and ambition. I came to Millbrook on the king's business, investigating reports of bandits in the region. Catherine worked at the inn where I stayed. She was beautiful, yes, but it was her spirit that captured me. She was fearless, clever, kind to everyone regardless of their station. Within a month, I knew I wanted to spend my life with her. But there were complications. I was nobility, sworn to the king's service, expected to marry within my class to secure alliances and estates. Your mother was common-born, a fact that meant nothing to me but everything to the king's court. When I asked permission to marry her, I was refused. They had already arranged my betrothal to Lady Helena of Westmarch, a political union meant to secure peace along the border territories." Elena listened, transfixed. Her mother had never spoken of any of this. She'd painted her father as a kind but unremarkable man, taken by fever before he could meet his daughter. A safe story. A protective lie. "I married Catherine anyway," William continued. "In secret, in a small chapel in the woods, with only a sympathetic priest and 2 witnesses. For 6 months, we lived in stolen moments. I would complete my duties, then slip away to the cottage she rented at the edge of town. It was the happiest time of my life." His voice cracked, and Elena saw tears gathering in his eyes. This legendary warrior, this man who had supposedly slain enemies by the dozen in defense of the realm, wept like a child. "Then Catherine discovered she was carrying you. We were overjoyed, but we also knew our secret couldn't hold much longer. I went to the king again, threw myself on his mercy, confessed everything. I begged him to annul the arranged marriage, to let me live honestly with the woman I loved. He refused. More than that, he was furious. I had disobeyed a direct order, made him look weak in front of other nobles, jeopardized an important political alliance. He gave me a choice: renounce Catherine publicly, have our marriage declared invalid, and never see her again, or face execution for treason and watch her be imprisoned for seducing a knight of the realm." Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "No. He couldn't." "He could and would have," William said bitterly. "The king I served was not a kind man. He valued order and obedience above all else. Your mother, when she learned of this ultimatum, made the choice for both of us. She came to me in the night and told me she was leaving Millbrook. She would tell everyone I had died, that she was a widow. She would raise you alone, safely, away from the dangerous world of court politics and royal displeasure. I fought her on this. I wanted to run away together, to flee to distant lands where no one knew our names. But Catherine was wiser than I was. She knew that a knight commander couldn't simply disappear without the king sending hunters after us. She knew that as long as I remained in service, performing my duties, accepting my fate, the king would leave her alone. Our marriage would be forgotten, dismissed as a youthful indiscretion. She and you would be safe. So I agreed. God help me, I agreed. I watched her leave Millbrook with you growing inside her, and I didn't follow. I threw myself into the king's service with reckless abandon, taking the most dangerous assignments, hoping perhaps that death would find me on some battlefield and end my suffering. But death didn't come. Instead, I won victories. I was promoted, decorated, praised as a hero of the realm. Each honor felt like another stone in the wall separating me from the life I wanted. I sent money when I could, through intermediaries, never enough but what I could spare without drawing attention. I received reports of you, brief and carefully worded. I learned you were healthy, curious, kind like your mother. I treasured every scrap of information like a miser hoards gold. Elena struggled to breathe through the weight of emotion crushing her chest. All those years, her mother working herself to exhaustion to provide for them, never remarrying, never even seeming to consider it. Now Elena understood why. Catherine had been married already, in her heart if not in law. Then came the Northern Wars, William said. 5 years ago, I was sent to command forces against the mountain clans. It was brutal, bloody work. During one battle, I was wounded badly, left for dead on a frozen field. My men presumed I had fallen, and honestly, I wanted them to believe it. I was so tired, Elena. Tired of killing, tired of serving a king I had long since lost faith in, tired of living half a life. A hermit found me, nursed me back to health in his cave. When I recovered, I realized I'd been given an unexpected gift, freedom. I was officially dead. The king couldn't command a dead man. I could go anywhere, be anyone. I came here, to the forests near Millbrook. I built this cabin with my own hands. I taught myself to live off the land. And I watched over you from a distance, like a guardian angel who had failed his charge but couldn't stop trying to protect her. I saw you grow into a woman who was the best of both your mother and me. I was so proud, even though I had no right to be. When your mother fell ill and died, I was there, hidden among the mourners at her funeral. I wanted so badly to reveal myself, to comfort you, to finally be the father I should have been. But I didn't. I told myself you were better off without me, that I would only complicate your life. Then 3 months ago, I heard rumors in the village. Margaret Blackwood had begun spreading poison about you. I tried to intervene quietly, to counter the lies, but she was cunning and determined. When I heard they'd arrested you, I knew I couldn't hide anymore. I couldn't let them kill my daughter while I cowered in the woods like a coward. William reached across the space between them and gently took Elena's hand. I know this is overwhelming. I know you have every right to hate me for abandoning you. But I need you to understand, not a single day passed when I didn't think of you. Not one moment when I wouldn't have traded every honor, every victory, every scrap of glory for the chance to be your father. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. Her whole life had been a carefully constructed fiction, designed to protect her from truths too dangerous to bear. Her mother had been a secret wife. Her father had been a knight commander, not a dead merchant. And the lonely woodsman who had haunted the forest edges, whom she'd occasionally glimpsed in her herb-gathering expeditions, had been watching over her all along. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She whispered. Even after Mother died, why didn't you come to me? Fear, William admitted. Pure, simple fear. What if you hated me? What if knowing the truth destroyed the peaceful life your mother had built for you? What if my presence brought the king's attention back to you? I had fought monsters and armies without flinching, but the thought of seeing rejection in your eyes terrified me more than any battlefield. Elena looked at this weathered man, this stranger who was her father, and felt something shift inside her. Anger, yes, there was anger for the lost years, for the deception, for the childhood without a father's love. But there was also understanding, and beneath everything else, a fierce, unexpected joy. She wasn't alone. She had family. She had a father who had sacrificed everything to keep her safe, even his right to know her. I don't hate you, she said finally. I don't know what I feel yet, but I don't hate you. William's face crumpled with relief. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. They sat in silence as the sun tracked across the sky, father and daughter together for the first time in 23 years, beginning the long, difficult work of becoming a family. 3 days passed in the forest sanctuary. Elena recovered her strength while William taught her the truth of her heritage. He showed her the secret letters her mother had sent over the years, carefully preserved in a locked chest. He taught her the Ashford family history, the noble lineage she'd never known was hers. He even began training her in swordplay, insisting that a knight's daughter should know how to defend herself. But the peaceful interlude couldn't last forever. On the 4th morning, a visitor arrived, Thomas Blackwood, his face haggard and frightened. You have to leave, he gasped, barely catching his breath. Both of you. My mother has gone mad. She's convinced the mayor to send word to the capital that Lord Ashford has kidnapped Elena, that he's an impostor using a dead hero's name. She's calling for royal investigators. William's expression darkened. Let them come. I have nothing to hide. You don't understand, Thomas insisted. My mother has powerful friends at court. She's been writing letters for years, building alliances, preparing for the day when I would marry nobility and elevate our family's position. She's calling in every favor, making promises she'll spend the rest of her life fulfilling. The investigators won't be neutral. They'll be her creatures. Elena felt ice forming in her stomach. They'll declare you an impostor and execute us both. Possibly, William admitted. though I have my own allies at court who might intervene. Might isn't good enough, Elena said fiercely. We need certainty. We need proof so overwhelming that even corrupt investigators can't ignore it. Thomas nodded eagerly. That's why I'm here. There's another way to establish Lord Ashford's identity beyond question. The king himself is traveling through the region next week, stopping at Riverside Castle to inspect the border fortifications. It's only 2 days' ride from here. If you could present yourself directly to him. The king who threatened my mother with imprisonment. Elena interrupted. The king who forced my father to choose between love and duty? We're supposed to throw ourselves on his mercy? William held up a hand. The old king died 3 years ago. His son rules now, young King Marcus. By all accounts, he's a different man than his father. More just, more merciful. He's been working to reform many of his father's harsh policies. It's still a massive risk, Elena argued. Living is a risk, William replied. Hiding accomplished nothing but delaying this reckoning. If we face the king together, tell him the complete truth, and beg his pardon for the deceptions of the past, we have a chance. If we run, we'll be fugitives forever. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. There's something else you should know. My mother isn't just calling for investigators. She's hired mercenaries. Rough men from the Eastern Territories, the kind who ask no questions and leave no witnesses. They arrived yesterday. She's sending them into the forest to, as she put it, resolve the situation permanently. William's hand moved instinctively to the sword hanging by the door. How many? 6 that I saw. Maybe more. She's paying them a fortune. We leave within the hour, William decided. Thomas, go back before you're missed. Don't give your mother any reason to suspect you've warned us. We'll need you to testify when this is over. Thomas clasped William's hand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry my family has brought this nightmare down on you both. You're not your mother, Elena said gently, touching his shoulder. You've shown more courage than most people find in a lifetime. Thank you for warning us. After Thomas left, Elena and William packed quickly. He had little to take, some clothes, his weapons, the chest of letters and proof of his identity. Elena had even less, possessing nothing but the dress she'd been arrested in and the cloak William had given her. They set out through the forest, moving quickly but carefully. William knew every game trail and hidden path, navigation skills honed by 3 years of solitary living. As they traveled, he told Elena about King Marcus, describing a young ruler who had inherited a troubled kingdom and seemed determined to heal its wounds. He was only 15 when I died, William explained. I remember him as a thoughtful boy, often at odds with his father's brutal methods. If half the stories I've heard are true, he's grown into a good man. Good enough to forgive you for faking your death and abandoning your post. Elena asked. I didn't abandon my post. I was left for dead in battle. What came after was merely declining to correct my men's reasonable assumption. That's a very fine distinction. Fine distinctions are what keep people's heads attached to their shoulders when dealing with kings. They made camp that night in a cave William knew, well hidden and defensible. They didn't risk a fire, eating cold provisions and huddling together for warmth. Elena found herself telling her father about her life, about her mother's quiet strength, about learning to read from the village priest, about discovering she had a gift for healing herbs and natural medicine. William listened with the intensity of a man starved for every detail, treasuring each small revelation about the daughter he'd missed knowing. He told her about battles he'd fought, about friends he'd lost, about the weight of command and the cost of loyalty. Do you regret it? Elena asked as moonlight filtered into the cave. Becoming a knight? Serving the king? William was quiet for a long time. I regret the choices I was forced to make because of it. I regret the system that put duty above love. But the work itself, protecting people, standing against cruelty and chaos, no, I don't regret that. We need people willing to fight for what's right. I only wish I'd been stronger, wise enough to fight for you and your mother too. You're fighting for me now, Elena said. That counts for something. The next day they rode hard, horses William had kept hidden near his cabin. They pushed east toward Riverside Castle, stopping only to rest the animals and grab brief moments of sleep. On the second evening, the castle came into view, its towers silhouetted against the sunset. They approached carefully, unsure of their reception. The guards at the gate tensed when they saw William's weathered appearance, hands moving to weapons. But when William spoke, using the formal language and protocols of military command, something in his bearing gave them pause. I am Lord William Ashford, Knight Commander of the Northern Reach, he declared. I request immediate audience with King Marcus. I have information vital to the security of the realm. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, the senior officer spoke. Lord Ashford is dead. Fell in battle 5 years past. Reports of my death were premature, William replied. I can provide proof of my identity, but I must speak with the king directly. Lives depend on it. Something in his voice, or perhaps the desperation in Elena's eyes, convinced them. They were escorted, under guard, into the castle and placed in a waiting room. Hours passed. Elena's nerves stretched tighter with each moment, imagining Margaret's mercenaries catching up to them, imagining royal guards dragging them to dungeons instead of the king's presence. Finally, as midnight approached, a royal steward appeared. His Majesty will see you. Follow me. They were led through torchlit corridors to a private audience chamber. King Marcus sat at a simple wooden table, dressed in plain clothes rather than royal finery. He was young, perhaps 30, with intelligent eyes and a face that suggested both strength and compassion. He studied them for a long moment before speaking. You claim to be William Ashford. I knew Lord Ashford when I was a boy. He taught me swordsmanship, told me stories of honor and duty. He was a good man. But he died a hero's death in the Northern Wars. So either you're an exceptionally bold impostor, or you've let everyone believe you were dead for 5 years. Either way, I'm very interested in your explanation. William knelt, gesturing for Elena to do the same. Your Majesty, I am indeed William Ashford. And this is my daughter, Elena. We come to you seeking justice, pardon, and protection. But most of all, we come to tell you the truth, all of it, no matter the cost. King Marcus leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Then speak, Lord Ashford. Tell me everything. And do not lie to me, for I value truth above all things. Even when it's painful. William took a deep breath and began the story from the beginning, leaving nothing out. The candles had burned low by the time William finished his confession. He had told King Marcus everything, his secret marriage to Catherine, the old king's ultimatum, the years of hidden sacrifice, his presumed death in battle and the decision to remain dead, his solitary vigil over Elena, and finally the corrupt execution he had stopped in Millbrook. He held nothing back, even the parts that painted him in a poor light, the moments of weakness and fear and failure. Elena had added her own testimony, describing her mother's life and death, the false accusations Margaret Blackwood had leveled against her, and the rigged trial that had nearly cost her life. She spoke with simple honesty, making no attempt to manipulate the king's sympathy, simply laying out the facts and letting them speak for themselves. King Marcus had listened without interruption, his expression giving nothing away. Now he sat in silence, processing everything he'd heard. The wait was agony. Elena felt her father's tension in the air between them, both of them balanced on the knife's edge between justice and disaster. Finally, the king rose and walked to the window, looking out at the moonlit courtyard. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of genuine emotion. My father was a hard man, he said quietly. Brilliant in matters of war and strategy, but cold in matters of the heart. He believed that order and duty were the highest virtues, that personal desires were weaknesses to be crushed. He created a kingdom that was strong but brittle, powerful but cruel. He turned back to face them. When I took the throne, I inherited the consequences of his philosophy. Good people had been broken by his demands for absolute obedience. Families had been destroyed to serve political convenience. The realm was held together not by love or loyalty, but by fear. Lord Ashford, what my father did to you and Catherine was unconscionable. Forcing you to choose between your sworn duty and your love, threatening an innocent woman with imprisonment, denying you the right to live honestly with your wife, these were the actions of a tyrant, not a just ruler. I cannot undo the past, but I can tell you this, if you had come to me with the same request my father denied, I would have granted it. Love and honor are not enemies. They should support each other. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. William remained kneeling, but she saw his shoulders shake with emotion. Your Majesty, William said, his voice hoarse. I abandoned my post. I let my comrades believe I was dead. I violated my oath to serve the crown until death. By the laws I swore to uphold, I have committed treason. Legally, you raise a fair point, King Marcus acknowledged. However, I have some discretion in interpreting these laws. As I understand it, you were left for dead on a battlefield, having fought bravely and suffered grievous wounds. When you recovered, you were no longer physically capable of military service. Rather than burden the crown with your medical care, you chose to live quietly and independently. Is that not a reasonable interpretation of events? William looked up, hope dawning on his weathered face. Your Majesty is most generous in his interpretation. I prefer to be just rather than generous, the king corrected. Justice requires understanding context and intent, not merely following the letter of the law. You served this kingdom faithfully for 18 years. You earned the right to rest. The fact that you chose to rest in obscurity rather than claim the honors and lands that were your due speaks to humility, not criminality. He moved to stand directly before them. Rise, both of you. I don't want you kneeling. We have practical matters to discuss. They stood, Elena leaning slightly on her father for support. Her legs felt weak with relief and disbelief. The situation in Millbrook concerns me greatly, King Marcus continued. A corrupt official executing innocent people to satisfy his wife's vendetta is unacceptable. I'll send a royal magistrate to investigate thoroughly. Margaret Blackwood and any co-conspirators will face justice. The false witnesses will be charged with perjury. Elena, your name will be cleared completely. But that's not enough, is it? He fixed William with a penetrating stare. Margaret Blackwood has reportedly hired mercenaries to kill you both. Even with royal protection, you'll be looking over your shoulders for years. She has the resources to be a persistent threat. We can handle mercenaries, William said grimly. I may be older, but I haven't forgotten how to fight. I don't doubt your abilities, but I have a better solution. I need someone to serve as royal magistrate for the northern province. Someone with military experience, noble blood, and the strength of character to root out corruption without fear or favor. Someone who understands that justice means protecting the powerless, not just enforcing rules. Would you accept such a position, Lord Ashford? William stared at the king in shock. Your Majesty, I've been living as a hermit for years. I'm hardly fit for high office. You stopped an unlawful execution at great personal risk to save an innocent woman. You've told me the truth about your failures even though lying might have served you better. You've demonstrated exactly the qualities I need. More importantly, as royal magistrate, you would have the authority and resources to protect your daughter from any threats. Margaret Blackwood wouldn't dare move against the family of a high-ranking royal official. Elena found her voice. Your Majesty, you're offering this position to protect us. King Marcus smiled. I'm offering it because Lord Ashford is uniquely qualified for it. The fact that it also solves your immediate security problem is merely good efficiency. I dislike wasting resources. Why station additional guards to protect you when I can simply give you the authority to protect yourselves? He walked back to his desk and began writing on parchment. There are conditions, of course. William, you'll need to restore your appearance to something befitting a royal official. Elena, as the acknowledged daughter of a noble family, you'll need education in court protocols and procedures. You'll both need to adjust to public life after years of obscurity. I never wanted public life, Elena said softly. Few people who would be good at it do, the king replied. But you're your father's daughter. You have his courage and your mother's compassion. Those are qualities the kingdom desperately needs, especially from people in positions of power. He signed the document with a flourish and pressed his royal seal into hot wax. This is your official pardon and Lord Ashford's appointment as royal magistrate of the northern province. The appointment includes lands, income, and a residence in the capital. You'll report directly to me, bypassing the usual political machinations that corrupt regional justice. William accepted the document with trembling hands. Your Majesty, I don't know what to say. Say you'll do the job well. Say you'll bring honor back to the position. Say you'll teach.